Hello, in this recording, we're going to look at a workaround we just built for a customer that wanted to use an effective date to bring data from Employee Central into their salary review cycle in the future, which is a pretty common requirement to be able to capture changes that happen after worksheets are launched in the salary review cycle. But the issue they were having was that for the merit recommendation column, they were bringing a default value to help planners in their decision making. And whenever someone's salary would change as part of a pay rate correction, for example, the system behavior, standard behavior was that the system basically, once worksheets are launched, the product will protect the amount that has been entered. So in this case, the guideline is based on percentage. So we bring 10%, we calculate 10,000, which is 10% of 100,000. Now, what if 200,000, so this value becomes 200,000, so times two. Well, the system would, by design, keep the 10,000 and trim the percentage. So even though it populated here based on percentages, once the worksheets are live, it protects the amount because potentially, it's an amount that maybe planners have edited since the worksheets were created, and it will trim the percentage to 5% in this case, since we bumped it up to 200,000. So now 10,000 divided by 200 is 5%. And so that's not what they wanted to do. They wanted to change the salary potentially, but keep the value from the guideline table. So to be 10%, and here to basically bump up to 20,000, which would be 10% of 200,000. So to do that, we have to use one of the enhancements from a few years ago to be able to use custom fields in as part of the guideline design. And we need three columns. The first change needs to be done in EC Comp Info. If there isn't already a field called date of last salary increase, we need to add that field to EC Comp Info. And we can see this field is here, date of last salary increase. And basically, the behavior of this field is that it's controlled by a business rule on save that says that if the previous value of the pay component is, or annualized pay component group is different from the new value that's being added, then use the event date of the change and populate it here. So we bring over the value date of last salary increase into here, and then we compare it with the worksheet launch date, which we fed from through a lookup table. And then we're going to flip this, switch this value here to be either yes or no. So by design, it's going to be no. And then if the value of date of last salary increase is greater than the worksheet launch date, then it becomes yes. And then through a setting in the guideline table that says force default on custom field change, we're going to be able to to have the behavior that we're looking for. So let's do a demo. So if I go here and change minicycloline salary, actually I need to insert a new record. That's what would happen in real life. And it's important in this particular test case because we want the date that what the system is going to use as the date of last salary increase is the date of the event. And so if I edit this record, it's going to populate it with September 1st, 2005, and it won't trigger the guideline override. So let's do insert a new record, and we're going to put it to tomorrow, since I used a worksheet today as worksheet launch date. And we're going to do data change, pay rate correction, and simply, so we have our field here, which is blank right now, and we're going to just simply increase it here to 200,000. I made this pay component annual. Most customers use monthly or bi-monthly or hourly, but it facilitates the test case. So we go do save. The requested pay rate change is greater than 5%, will require additional approvals. Proceed. Okay, looks like it got saved. It didn't skip the approvals, it looks like, which is great. So we can now see that the date of last salary increase is tomorrow, October 29, 2024. And when we reload the compensation worksheet that we looked at initially, we're going to see that guideline override switches to yes, that we get October 29 to populate here, and most importantly, we're going to see that this stays 10% and this becomes 20,000 because of the current salary going up times 2. So let's do a test case. Yep. So we can see 200,000, $20,000 because we have this guideline override that is now set to yes due to a comparison between these two dates. So let's take a look at how we build this. So we can explore the formulas. So we have the first field is the date of last salary increase, which is mapped to EC, to the comp info field. Then we have the worksheet launch date, which is coming from a lookup table with this formula that you can find in my blog called Dates and Roundings in Compensation. And then finally, a string column called guideline override, type string, that basically compares the two values. So if the date of last salary increase that comes from EC is greater than the worksheet's launch date, which is this one, the ID of this one, then yes. Otherwise, any other case, set the value to no. Let's take a look at the guideline now. If we look at its details, we have, so for this particular test case, we have 2 entries. We only use that one criteria, but in real life, most customers would use, for example, the rating, the comp ratio, and they would have to use to add this on top of it. So basically, this design kind of assumes that the number of entries that were in the guideline table gets doubled because there needs to be a no and a yes for each entry, basically. And if you already have a lot of entries in your guideline table, you might be interested in a setting, I think it's in settings called Enable Guideline Optimization. Yes, this one. So you might want to check this to make your mass update jobs go faster if you already have a lot of entries and need to double for this design. Now let's take a look at this lookup table. It's pretty straightforward. I think the one that brings the worksheet's launch date. Yeah, so we have this lookup table here, 2024 Merit Worksheets launch date. If we look at it, it's here, and we basically use the user ID that we bring from job info into a custom column of the worksheet, the star as a catch-all value, and then the format is US here. And as you saw in the formula, the to-date formula, we force the format so it can be displayed on the worksheet in the date column. But it's pretty straightforward. Then the last thing I can show is the rule in comp info. So for that, I will go to Manage Business Configuration. And then navigate here to the bottom. And so it's a comp info model rule, comp date of last increase. And basically it says if the annualized salary previous value is not equal to the current value or dot value and not previous value, then set date of last salary increase to be equal to the event date, the current event, the one that's being added. And that's an on-save rule that needs to be added here at the bottom of the project. Now, this part of the work should be done with an EC certified consultant. So if you are a compensation administrator or a compensation consultant that is not certified in Employee Central, you should not be making this change. Why? Because these rules, sometimes the order of the rules may have an impact on the other rules, and this is critical for payroll integration. So it's really important that you do not make this change yourself unless you are also EC certified and you've run that change by the project manager or the global success factors administrators. But this is how we build this specific workaround. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.